This is Steve Mnuchin, who has the over $4 trillion slush fund essentially at his disposal, who, again, Kamala Harris had an opportunity to prosecute him in California. She did not. And here he is as Treasury Secretary. But look into Steve Mnuchin's history in the housing market, his history in foreclosures. Look at his own inheritance of power. He's another trust fund baby. He's overseeing the slush fund. He's talking about, obviously, he's not going to be transparent about it. That would be a violation. We talked about that earlier. And he's coming through to suggest there's a lot we still don't know about Corona, obviously. And of course, even if you're outside, you can absolutely get it. That's why you should be wearing masks. That's why you should be maintaining 6 feet of distance from other people. But it is one of the only things that we could say with some certainty is that you are at a lower likelihood of transmission outside versus inside. That's something that's kind of broadly understood by basically everybody, except apparently the Treasury Secretary, too busy funneling money into corporate America to keep up with the basics of the transmission of the pandemic that has caused a Great Depression, which he's actually doing a lot about under his watch. He's doing it as a massive grand theft for the ultra wealthy of this country.
Let me just give a pitch on indoor seating, okay? I'm happy that in D.C. they've now allowed restaurants open. I've tried to support restaurants. I don't see why, on an indoor basis, socially distanced, that restaurants can't be serving indoors, particularly in parts of the country where COVID is under control. So I agree with you. This distinction between indoor and outdoor seems a bit random, and I don't know what people would do when it rains.
Thank you.
Well, it's not random. It's that it is quite literally safer outdoors than indoors.
It's how air circulates.
It's how air circulates. It's why every single thing that we have seen about this has said that if you're in any type of contained or stagnant environment, you are more at risk of this. Like literally everybody knows that. Also, what part of the country is this completely under control in?
Exactly. That was my thought. Like everywhere that said they had it under control is reopening and, having their largest outbreak of cases and hospitalizations as we speak.
Hey,
isn't that happening right now? Aren't there spiking cases across the country?
Yes.
Even in the last couple of days,
Phoenix
correlated clearly with openings. And of course, these assholes are going to blame it on the protests. And absolutely, look, of course there's going to be a spike because of some of the protests. We can't, don't deny the reality. Obviously there will be. But that is not. This was already in the works, and we had already seen the numbers coming in because of the reopening. So what is he talking about? It's this mass denial of basic reality right now from the White House and from governors. Like, just, no, it's done. It's done.
It's an end in and of itself, regardless of the specific thing they're denying. Because, as long as they have people, then you can be like, well, who knows anything? That's the sentiment they want to cultivate. And, any specific instance that they're wrong about, they don't really care if they get busted on being wrong about that, because they know that a certain number of the population is going to just throw their hands up and be like, yeah, we can't trust experts anymore.
Well, they did remove one of the refrigerated truck morgues from the hospital near my house, so that's progress. There's still one there, but, one less.
I mean, to the extent there is, if New York is in a position where it's lessening, it is because the response has been so utterly catastrophic that maybe between lack of reports, people, dying from this, but we don't have it assigned that way, half of New York City could have already gone through this, basically. So when Cuomo talks about crushing the curve, I mean, basically, like, if New York is ahead, and there's no real proof of that, I would still expect to see a second surge of this everywhere, later in the year. But like, if New York, basically New York being under control is like, quote unquote, first of all, it's just not. But secondly, it's basically because it was so completely recklessly handled that it's informally we've run, like, we did the UK model here, right? Like, there isn't herd immunity. You still have to take all these precautions, but a ton of people have had it. Ton, maybe half the population.
Yeah.
Probably not that much, but I'm just like, it's and even here, it is not under control. It's still, people are still getting it all over the place.
We didn't quite do what that right-wing libertarian was advocating on CNBC. I forget his name, where he's like, just don't do anything, let it rip through the population. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. But we did sort of a lesser version of that in many places where insufficient measures were taken.